Welcome to Chapter 6, Inequality, Femininities. In this chapter, we're turning our attention to women's experiences of gender inequality and the complex ways femininity is both rewarded and restricted in society. Femininity, like masculinity, isn't a fixed trait. It's something that's performed, negotiated, and policed. And just as men face pressures around what counts as real masculinity, women face expectations around what counts as proper femininity. Remember how we talked about cheerleading in the previous chapter? When women took over the sport, it was reclassified as feminine and eventually sexualized, even though it still required incredible athleticism. That's a great example of how our culture continues to value femininity less, even when women demonstrate skill, strength, and leadership. For women, doing gender often means walking a tightrope, balancing strength and softness, ambition and likability, independence and care. Sociologists call this the feminine apologetic, the idea that women must balance masculine interests or traits with conventional femininity. In other words, if a woman succeeds in a masculine coded space, she's expected to soften it with feminine behavior or appearance. But this balancing act can go wrong. Pariah femininities, those that directly challenge male dominance, are often harshly policed. Think of women who are assertive, outspoken, or uninterested in catering to men's approval. They often face pushback or ridicule precisely because they disrupt the gender hierarchy. Even as women enter fields once closed to them, gender inequality persists. Women often have to do more to be seen as equally competent, yet still lose when their success is interpreted as unfeminine or threatening. This imbalance is maintained through different forms of sexism. Sexism, the favoring of men over women; androcentrism, the valuing of masculinity over femininity; benevolent sexism, which sounds positive but still reinforces inequality by idealizing women as pure, nurturing, or in need of protection; and hostile sexism, which uses harassment, threats, or violence to enforce women's subservience to men. In patriarchal systems, women's safety can be compromised by aggrieved entitlement, the anger some men feel when they believe something they deserve is being taken away. This sense of loss or resentment can fuel misogyny, which is the fear or hatred of women who hold power. When harm happens, society often responds with victim blaming, asking what the woman did wrong instead of focusing on the person who harmed her. That's part of how inequality gets managed and maintained. To navigate this system, women make what sociologists call patriarchal bargains, strategic choices that help them survive or succeed within unequal conditions. There are a few common types. Emphasize femininity, where women amplify traits that cater to men's desires or expectations in exchange for approval or protection. Emphatic sameness, where women try to blend in by acting like one of the guys to access male privilege. And gender equivocation, using femininity and masculinity strategically, depending on what the situation calls for. But all of this takes place within a double bind, a situation where cultural expectations contradict each other, making it nearly impossible to succeed. If a woman is too feminine, she's seen as weak. If she's too assertive, she's punished for being unfeminine. It's a no-win situation created by conflicting standards. That's an interesting question. Hegemonic masculinity dominates, but femininity doesn't work the same way. Femininity gains its power through proximity to men, meaning women's value is often measured by how well they align with masculine approval. So while femininity can be celebrated, it's rarely empowering in the same structural sense. At its core, feminism is the belief that all people, regardless of gender, should have equal rights and opportunities. But gender inequality isn't isolated. It exists within a matrix of domination, a structure where multiple hierarchies like race, class, sexuality, and ability intersect. Those who are privileged in every hierarchy sit at the top, while others face compounding disadvantages. Finally, We're living through what scholars call a stalled revolution, a moment where women's lives have changed dramatically, but cultural attitudes and institutional practices haven't caught up. Women have entered the workforce, education, and leadership at record rates, yet expectations around caregiving, appearance, and emotional labor remain stuck in the past. So, in this chapter, we explored how femininity functions within systems of inequality, how women navigate impossible standards, bargain with patriarchy, and continue pushing for genuine equality. As we move forward, we'll look at how these patterns connect to broader systems of power and social change.